January 2026 didn't deliver rumors, it delivered images. According to online claims, previously unseen yacht photos surfaced showing Meghan Markle aboard luxury vessels in Monaco and across the Mediterranean. These weren't recycled paparazzi shots or blurry screenshots debated for years. They were clear, high-resolution images allegedly leaked from private collections, images that, until now, had never circulated publicly. What makes them controversial isn't simply the setting. It's the timing. The photos are said to date from 2008 to 2012, the exact period Meghan Markle publicly described as her struggling actress years in Hollywood. Not her royal years. Not post-fame. Not post-marriage. Long before Suits made her recognizable to a global audience. And these yachts weren't casual party boats. According to accounts from individuals familiar with elite Mediterranean yacht culture, such vessels are typically closed, invitation-only environments. Attendance isn't purchased. It's curated. These gatherings are said to include international billionaires, Gulf elites, and figures connected to powerful financial and political networks. Access is selective by design. So the question isn't whether she was on a yacht. The question is how she gained repeated access to spaces most people, regardless of talent or effort, will never enter. This is where the discussion stops being superficial and becomes about logistics. Between 2008 and 2012, Meghan Markle's publicly documented income came from minor acting roles, short television appearances, and short-term contracts. She was not yet a series lead. She was not independently wealthy. And yet, the settings shown in these alleged photos involve costs that far exceed what such work would typically support. Someone would have covered travel. Someone would have facilitated access. Someone would have vouched for her presence. Supporters often dismiss this by saying, networking is normal. And that's true, to a point. But this level of networking, if accurately described, is neither casual nor inexpensive. Elite yacht circuits operate on strategy, not spontaneity. What also draws attention is the reported consistency. These alleged images don't depict a single appearance. They span multiple years, which suggests not a one-off invitation, but an ongoing presence. And in elite spaces, repeated invitations usually imply value. According to people familiar with these environments, there is a term used internally for such introductions, *strategic social placement star. Individuals are brought into these circles not randomly, but because someone believes they can serve a social, relational, reputational, or strategic function. Once inside, they are quietly observed, how they communicate, who they engage with, and how effectively they navigate the hierarchy. What's striking about the images, according to those who've seen them, is how comfortable Meghan Markle appears. Not overwhelmed, not out of place, but at ease, like someone who understands the room, the dynamics, and the unspoken rules. Sources describe her not as a novelty guest, but as a familiar presence. Someone discreet, someone trusted. And in these cycles, discretion is currency. That raises uncomfortable questions, not accusations, but questions, because people are rarely kept in such environments without reason. Power structures tend to invest with expectations, even if those expectations are never made explicit. The most sensitive part of this story involves who else is alleged to have been present. Claims suggest these gatherings included Saudi-connected figures and Gulf elites, not at public charity galas, but aboard private yachts during peak Monaco seasons, alongside facilitators known for introducing influential players. Across global networks, mainstream media has largely avoided engaging with these claims, likely due to their speculative nature and lack of official verification. And that's appropriate. But silence also fuels curiosity. At the heart of this story isn't a conclusion, it's a gap. A gap between public narrative and alleged private access. And until that gap is clearly explained, questions will continue to circulate, regardless of whether the images ultimately prove meaningful or mundane. Because in elite spaces, access is rarely accidental, and appearances, even unproven ones, tend to invite scrutiny. Let's say this plainly, without whispering. You do not attend private gatherings with Saudi and Gulf elites unless three things are true. You are vetted, you are vouched for, and you are considered safe, useful, and discreet. This isn't Hollywood. This isn't celebrity culture. This is international power culture. And in those cycles, discretion is the highest currency, which is why the appearance of leaked photos years later matters so much. These are the same environments known for burying scandals so thoroughly they never surface. So when images allegedly emerge long after the fact, it suggests something has shifted internally. Because leaks like this don't happen by accident. They happen when protection is withdrawn. That's the moment the question changes. It's no longer asterisk was she there, asterisk. The images, if authentic, answer that. The real question becomes, asterisk asterisk what relationships were formed there, and why are they being exposed now, asterisk asterisk. Power networks don't tolerate loose ends. When discretion disappears, it usually means an unspoken rule was broken. And once protection is gone, everything becomes negotiable. This is where coincidence stops working as an explanation. After years of appearing in elite international spaces she could not have independently financed, Meghan Markle's career trajectory shifts. In 2011, she lands suits the role that becomes her launchpad. Not after a decade of breakout performances, not after A-list visibility, but after years of proximity to high-level networks that operate far beyond traditional Hollywood pathways. Then fast forward again. By 2016, Meghan is introduced to Prince Harry. That introduction doesn't come through chance encounters, royal circles, or casting agents. It comes through Soho House and through Marcus Anderson. And it's worth being clear about what Soho House actually is. It's not just a bar. It's not just a restaurant. It's a members-only gatekeeping institution designed to merge wealth, influence, media, and politics behind closed doors. Access isn't about fame alone. It's about trust, discretion, and usefulness. By the time Meghan Markle enters that world, she isn't inexperienced. She has nearly a decade of navigating elite power spaces, learning how to read rooms, understand hierarchy, cultivate relationships, and position herself as someone worth elevating. That's why the popular narrative doesn't quite align with the pattern. Claims that she was naive to power, overwhelmed by hierarchy, or blindsided by elite structures don't fit with someone who allegedly survived and thrived in yacht circuits involving Gulf elites. Women who last in those environments don't stumble into palaces unaware. They adapt. They strategize. Which brings us to the most consequential part of this story. Not what happened then, but why this is surfacing now. Leaks don't happen when people are angry. They happen when people are finished. These photos didn't appear in 2015. They didn't appear during the wedding. They didn't appear during the Oprah interview. They surfaced in January 2026, precisely as Meghan Markle began promoting a new public image, lifestyle branding, Netflix projects, a carefully managed comeback. That timing doesn't feel random. It feels deliberate. According to claims from individuals familiar with elite international circles, images like these are often held for years, protected, buried, never meant to surface. When they do, they are rarely released all at once. They're leaked strategically, enough to raise questions, not enough to exhaust leverage. That tells us something important. This isn't exposure for outrage. It's exposure as pressure. A reminder that silence was conditional and that the condition may no longer be met. Which brings us to the silence itself. No denial. No clarification. No contextual explanation. No attempt to neutralize the narrative. That silence isn't confusion. It's calculation. Because if these images represented innocent networking, explanations would already exist. If there were harmless context, it would be circulating. If there were receipts to shut this down, they would be front and center. Instead, there is nothing, while the images are analyzed frame by people who understand exactly what these environments signify. Silence only works when you expect a story to die. But this story isn't fading, because it isn't built solely on speculation. It's built on timing, access, patterns, and unanswered questions. Who paid? Who facilitated? Who vouched? And why is no one denying it? Because when denial never comes, attention shifts to something else entirely. ***, what hasn't been released yet? ***. And that is a part people should be far more concerned about. They are fragments, samples, proof-of-life releases designed to establish authenticity without exposing everything at once. According to individuals familiar with elite international circles, additional material may exist: travel records, invitations, guest lists, private correspondence, and accounts from people who witnessed how certain connections were formed and quietly maintained over time. And this is the part that unsettles people who understand how power operates. The individuals who control that information don't need public validation. They don't need applause. They don't need to trend. They don't need outrage. They only need one person to understand that the record still exists. Because when discretion ends in elite circles, it doesn't end explosively. It ends incrementally, one release at a time. This isn't a scandal erupting. It's a pressure phase, a signal. Which brings us to the deeper truth beneath all of this, the kind of truth that doesn't require accusation to be destabilizing. Power has a long memory. It remembers who was protected. It remembers who was elevated. And it remembers who violated unspoken rules after the doors were opened. For years, Meghan Markle's past remained buried beneath reinvention, titles, and narrative control. But narratives don't erase history. They only delay its relevance. These images didn't surface because people were suddenly curious. They surfaced because silence expired. And once silence expires, the past stops being private. It becomes contextual. It becomes leverage. This isn't really about yachts. It isn't even about money. It's about access. About who opened doors. About who benefited from those doors opening. And about who eventually decided they were done protecting the story. Because when people who once guarded your past decide they're finished staying quiet, they don't rush. They don't dump everything. They release just enough to remind you what they still hold. And that's what observers believe we're witnessing now. Not an ending, but an opening. Because if this is what was deemed safe to show, the more important question isn't what we've seen. It's what remains unreleased.